vows not to yield to external pressure as the U.S. bolsters its largest assembly of military assets in the Middle East. The WHO says Sudan's health system is on the brink of collapse due to ongoing attacks on hospitals. And UNICEF calls for faster humanitarian assistance in Madagascar as vast areas struggle to recover from Cyclone Gizani. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi, and for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's begin with our top story. President Masoud Pezeshkian has reiterated Iran will not bow to pressure by world powers. His remarks come as the United States continues to ramp up its largest assembly yet of military assets in the Middle East as prospects of a deal over Iran's nuclear program hang in the balance.
We will not bow our heads in the face of these problems. We will try to bring honor and pride to our country. As long as we are alive and we can breathe, we will sacrifice our lives for our country.
The Iranian Foreign Ministry has designated the navies and air forces of all European Union member states as terror organizations. Tehran says it's in response to the EU's decision to label Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization, a move which violates the UN Charter and international law. And U.S. President Donald Trump has declared temporary tariffs of 15% on all U.S. imports. The move came less than 24 hours from his announcement of 10% across the board after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down his sweeping 2025 tariffs. The decision has triggered criticism from its trade partners now preparing countermeasures. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said he will closely coordinate with other EU countries ahead of his trip to Washington, and he will stress the tariffs are harming the U.S. Merz also warned of what he called the poison of more uncertainty. French Trade Minister Nicolas Forichier said the European Union has the tools to hit back. The Financial Times quoted French officials saying the EU's response may include options such as the trade bazooka, an anti-coercion instrument that could affect U.S. tech companies. The Republic of Korea's presidential office says it has discussed responses to Trump's tariffs and will continue consultations with the U.S. Hundreds of companies have filed lawsuits to claim refunds on billions of dollars they paid toward the Trump administration's tariffs. The University of Pennsylvania estimates the total collected from Trump's tariffs implemented under the Economic Emergency Powers Act could be more than $175 billion. Analysis shows almost 90% of the cost of tariffs fell on consumers and businesses. Economists say the process for companies to secure refunds on duties paid is unclear. President Trump says they will end up in court over the next 5 years. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has demanded from the president a refund of $1,700 for every family in his state, which comes to a total of over $8 billion. And more Democrat governors have joined the call for tariff refunds. The World Health Organization warns that the health system in Sudan is nearing collapse as violence continues to target medical facilities. In February alone, 4 attacks were reported on health centers and hospitals. 3 strikes in Kordofan left dozens dead, while another hit Al Mazmoum Hospital in Sanar State. The incidents have been attributed to the Rapid Support Forces. A recent report by the United Nations says more than a third of health facilities are no longer functioning, with many others only partially operational. The disruption is leaving millions without care, especially pregnant women in vulnerable communities. Our correspondent Naba Moordeen has more from Port Sudan.
The WHO warned that 1/3 of Sudanese healthcare facilities are out of service, while most of others are partially functioning, meaning that millions of people can't access basic life-saving care, including maternal care, surgeries and treatments of chronic diseases, and also diseases that right now is spreading because of the war, like cholera, malaria, and dengue fever. So repeated attacks on healthcare and on hospitals is breeding fears and displacements among people. We are seeing a collapsing healthcare system, although some areas that is now controlled by the Sudanese military, like Khartoum and Al Jazeera, we are seeing life is getting back to normalcy, especially in healthcare system, where hospitals right now are reopening. But generally, we can say the healthcare system in Sudan is collapsing, with hospitals being used as military sites and being targeted by the fighting. Among the top of states that is repeatedly attacked by the RSF and caught in the crossfire of fighting is South Kordofan. According to WHO report, more than 30 people got killed in February alone in 2026 in South Kordofan, being targeted in healthcare facilities, including hospitals and clinics. Many people got killed in Sinnar Hospital, being attacked in mid-February in 2026 alone. And number 3 is Al Fashir, the third state that is repeatedly targeted by the fighting and healthcare are targeted is Al Fashir, that was under siege for 18 months. The Saudi Maternal Hospital and also the Saudi Hospital were attacked, and they saw and experienced siege conditions. So we are speaking about 69 people killed since the beginning of the year alone in 2026, and we are talking about hundreds of attacks since April 2023, when the war erupted between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. So the statistics are big. More than 50 people got injured within 2 months and 69 are killed. But there are fears that once healthcare facilities are targeted by the fighting and they are seen as a military gain and a military site, they used to be occupied and used as a weapon, there are fears that the number are likely to increase.
Humanitarian organization Insecurity Insight has released new data on attacks on health facilities in Sudan. At least 689 incidents of violence against or obstruction of access to health care have been documented since the start of the conflict in April 2023 up until December 2025. Of these incidents, over 2/3 were attributed to the RSF. In that time, at least 175 health workers have been killed and 96 were arrested. Health facilities, including maternity and children's hospitals, as well as dialysis centers, were reportedly damaged. North, South, and West Kordofan have become increasingly affected by the conflict. In these 3 regions, 60 incidents affecting health care were reported. Among the latest incidents was an RSF drone strike on a health center in Kadugli and a suspected RSF strike targeting a truckload of medicines and medical supplies near Dilling. Sudan has condemned Uganda's move to host Rapid Support Forces leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. President Yoweri Museveni hosted Dagalo on Friday at State House in Entebbe. Museveni emphasized on inclusive dialogue as a way to end the conflict. In a statement, the Sudanese Foreign Ministry termed the visit as one that contradicts Uganda's commitments to good neighborliness. Uganda is yet to comment on the accusation by Sudan. Well, a major sting operation targeting cybercrime networks has arrested hundreds of suspects across Africa. The operation, backed by Interpol, also recovered over $4 million. It is part of a wider effort to crack down on online scams and cross-border financial fraud, which has been on the rise in recent years. CGTN's Robert Nagila reports.
It is one of the largest cross-border operations involving law enforcement agencies from multiple countries. The operation, targeting 16 African countries, saw local authorities arrest 651 suspects and recover $4.3 million between December last year and January this year. Backed by Interpol, Operation Red Card 2.0 targeted the infrastructure and people behind high-yield investment scams, mobile money fraud, and fraudulent mobile loan applications. The 2-month-long operation exposed scams linked to over $45 million in financial losses and identified 1,247 victims from across the world, but mostly from Africa. Over 1,000 fraudulent social media accounts were taken down in Nigeria, including an operational hub. In Kenya, 27 suspects linked to online fraud were arrested, while in Côte d'Ivoire, police arrested 58 suspects and seized 240 mobile phones, 25 laptops, and over 300 SIM cards. In recent years, there's been a surge in online scams in Africa. A report by Interpol in 2025 said cybercrime accounted for 30% of all reported crime in Western and Eastern Africa. Robert Nagela, CGTN.
A wave of heartbreaking stories is forcing Nigerians to ask, how safe are their hospitals? From gauze being left inside a gunshot survivor to a toddler going missing after a routine procedure, families across the country are speaking out about alleged medical error or negligence that's cost them dearly. With such complexity surrounding the legal situation, it's often very difficult to prove liability in a court of law. Until reforms are made, many patients say they just have to keep putting their blind trust in the system. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam has this report from Nigeria's capital, Abuja.
For this mother of twins, a medical procedure changed her life. Married in 2014, Alice Chidebere was looking forward to giving birth to her first child a year later. However, 6 months into the pregnancy, she lost the baby and was scheduled for an evacuation procedure. She says what followed left her unable to carry a pregnancy again, forcing her family to turn to costly surrogacy after years of tests and failed treatments.
I'll blame the hospital because I still remember when I went for that evacuation. The doctor who was supposed to do or who did the evacuation, I overheard the student doctor with him. So let me try, let me, you said the next time you give me to try. So he gave her what he was using to do the evacuation. She did. So I think at that point, that was when the damage happened. It disrupted a lot of things in my system. In fact, I couldn't conceive. That was what medical reports said, that I can't conceive. So it did a lot of damage, even to my mental health and every other thing around me.
The physical, emotional, and financial impact on Alice and her family has been severe. Her experience reflects a wider pattern. Families who say they walked into hospitals seeking care but came out with lasting harm. Patient safety advocates say many of these incidents are preventable and often linked to weak supervision, fatigue, and poor process control inside medical facilities. Clinical governance expert Obinna Anyanwu explains why breakdowns happen behind the scenes.
There should be a protocol that everybody understands and everybody use routinely, so it's like an automatic thing. The second thing is also fatigue. That's a human factor. You have a surgeon do surgeries, 10 surgeries, 15 surgeries in a day. At a point, the team might be fatigued, and that could happen. The third thing that people don't also monitor their processes. I believe that after every operation, people should sit down, teams should sit down, go through what they have done. What did we do right? What didn't we do well? What were the near misses? So when you document this and review it, it makes you to create systems that will avoid the big things from happening.
But when things go wrong, getting justice can be another uphill battle. Legal experts say many families are discouraged by long court delays, high legal costs, and the burden of proof required in negligence claims. Medical law expert Nekabari Anna says mistakes alone do not amount to negligence, and proving wrongdoing requires strong evidence.
An act amounts to negligence where the medical practitioner clearly disregards the standard way of doing that particular thing. It is not enough for you to say the doctor has injured you. It's not enough for you to say the doctor has breached the duty of care. You must prove and establish specifically by evidence how this duty of care was breached and how it resulted in injury to you.
Anna says many disputes end in out-of-court settlements. He adds that disciplinary processes exist, including tribunals under the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, but funding and speed remain concerns. Pressure is now growing for faster trials, stronger enforcement, and compensation that truly reflects the scale of harm suffered by victims. From shattered dreams to the long search for accountability, many families say Nigeria's health system is at a crossroad. The federal government's new National Task Force on Clinical Governance and Patient Safety is seen as a step forward. But experts say without stricter oversight, better funding and a culture of transparency, families will continue to pay the ultimate price. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
The rush for mineral wealth has led to many deaths on the African continent. Recently, 37 miners died in a suspected carbon monoxide leak at a mine in Nigeria's Plateau State. CGTN's Joy Kruki with more.
The deadly incident took place in the Kampani community in Plateau State. Nigerian officials said the area was an abandoned lead and zinc mine with stored minerals prone to releasing toxic gases. Police cordoned off the site to prevent further access. Survivors were taken to hospital.
The incident happened at a mining site, which was reported to my station. Immediately I rushed there, saw the victims and rushed them to the hospital. We recovered about 26 dead bodies.
It is believed that carbon monoxide had spread in the poorly ventilated tunnels, causing miners to suffocate and collapse after inhaling it. The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative cited that the country loses up to $9 billion annually to illegal mining and gold smuggling. With rising poverty levels, illegal mining is on the rise in Nigeria, a factor locals attest to.
I am a resident at Company Zurich, where our loved ones had the incident at the mining site. We have no other means of livelihood apart from mining. We see this work as our destiny. We do not believe anyone intended to harm our loved ones. It was an act of God. He gave them to us. He has taken them back. Whatever God sends, we accept. I lost my son and my young brother.
I went to the mine in search of daily bread. When we entered, something happened and our breathing stopped. We fainted. We did not know when we were taken to the hospital. When the gas strikes inside the mine, it throws you to the ground and you can die. About 37 people I knew died. Later, I was told the number had risen to 47. I also heard that some foreign experts came with breathing equipment to assist people, and because of that, some lives were saved.
The federal government has suspended all mining activities in areas near the accident site to allow for comprehensive investigation. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
Aid agencies are warning of a deepening humanitarian crisis in Madagascar following Cyclone Gazani. UNICEF called for a rapid scale-up of assistance. The storm, which struck the East Coast earlier this month, has killed more than 60 people and left widespread destruction, particularly around the port city of Toamasina. According to the World Meteorological Organization, the cyclone made landfall on February the 10th with winds nearing 180 kilometers per hour and gusts reaching about 230. Officials say hundreds of thousands of people have been affected and thousands displaced, with many communities still cut off from power, clean water, and health care. Aid groups warned that visible damage only hints at the wider crisis as recovery efforts continue.
It really doesn't paint the picture of the needs and the situation on the ground. So when you have, when you don't have access to water, when you don't have access to healthcare, all of these things that get disrupted post-cyclone, the actual toll of the cyclone and the impact and the secondary effects are very difficult to calculate. Safe drinking water is a huge concern. So we've installed 3 temporary water areas that can serve up to 1,000 people a day. And that's to provide clean drinking water until we can rehabilitate the water points that were damaged from the storm. We're also looking at installing water treatment units, and that can also treat river water, all of these water sources that have been contaminated post-cyclone.
In the waters of Lake Kivu, bordering the vibrant city of Goma in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, lives a species of fish known as sambaza. Though small in size, sambaza is big in impact. CGTN's Sharon Baranga explores how this natural treasure nourishes far more than appetites.
At dawn, young men unload baskets of sambaza from wooden canoes at Kituku Port in Goma. Dozens of boats return from the lake after a long night of fishing. The small silverfish are snapped up by traders who resell them across the city and even beyond the border into Rwanda.
Sambaza is not only consumed in Goma, it is sold in Rwanda. Before the war, it went as far as Kinshasa and other distant places like Kichanga and Ruchuru. This business has allowed me to buy land and build a beautiful house. I can provide for my family. If a child gets sick, I can pay for treatment. When visitors come, they never go hungry because of this job.
Claude Russia, a fisherman since childhood, now owns 18 motorized canoes, an investment of nearly $10,000. He employs close to 100 people and earns at least $400 a day from the trade. Though small, sambaza fuels a vast informal economy, feeding families and strengthening community resilience. At the market, Efrasi Kabea supports her 8 children by selling sambaza.
I was robbed in 2024, and since then I have been selling sambaza by the kilo. It is a very good business. It helps fill many gaps in our households, especially for food. It allows us to feed and educate our children even through university. Some are earning degrees thanks to this business.
The story of sambaza is also the story of endurance. Fishermen brave treacherous conditions, even methane gases that rise from the depths of Lake Kivu.
This work has many difficulties. At night there are strong winds. Sometimes rain falls on us and the cold hits hard. But we endure it. In the morning, if God blesses you with a good catch, you forget all the suffering of the night.
Originally native to Lake Tanganyika and introduced to Lake Kivu in the late 1950s, sambaza is today a staple. At around $4 per kilo, sambaza remains affordable for most families in Goma. But it is more than just a meal. It is identity, livelihood and hope, shimmering proof that even the smallest catch can sustain an entire community. Sharon Baranga, CGTN.
Time now for our sports segment. Here are the headlines. China's Gu Eiling retains half-pipe title as Winter Olympics comes to an end. Well, welcome into Sport on Africa Live with me, Richard Nta. Let's get going with the Winter Olympics. China's Gu Eiling successfully defended her Winter Olympics freestyle skiing half-pipe title on the final day of the Milan Cortina Games on Sunday. Gu moved into the lead with a second run score of 94 points, then increased that mark to 94.75 with her third and final run. It was a first gold medal of the 2026 Winter Games for Gu, who collected big air and slope-style silvers now has a collection of 6 Olympic medals. The silver medal for the half-pipe went to Gu's teammate Li Fangyi, with Britain's Zoe Atkins earning a bronze.
I walk away as